Okay, so I just gave a whole spiel about what GitHub is and version controlling. Okay, but you know what version controlling is? All that. I don't know. Okay, sweet, excellent. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is go into GitHub. So if you just go to github.com, everybody should have created a repository by now, or a profile by now. And so what we're going to do is create a new repository specifically for our Tidy Tuesday. And usually when you go into Git, you can see, like, so it's kind of social media too, like where you can follow people and see what they've been doing. So Danielle has been posting stuff 8 hours ago, and my other Danielle did as well too, so you can see what's happening. So to create a new repository, you press the new button. Okay, and then you give it a repository name and make it something useful. Like you can call it whatever you want. I was going to call mine Tidy Tuesday CSUN. Git does not like spaces. So if you're going to connect something, use like an underscore. And then you can give it a little description. So you can say Tidy Tuesday workshop. And then go down where this check mark is, where it says initialize repository with the README. And you'll click that and press create repository. Cool. Anybody have any issues so far? No. Okay. So this is an example of what a repository is. Every repository has a README file, which is where you put the information about what's in your repository. I'll give you an example of what one looks like that is a little bit more complete. So this is an example from a paper that I published on nutrient pollution, and the README file has like the author name, the journal, all the data that's in there, that kind of stuff. So usually you put in information, so when you send this to someone, the first thing they see, like they know exactly what it is that you're looking at. Cool. Okay. All right, so we have our repository. So now to get it to work with RStudio, the first thing we have to do is clone this repository. So this button that says clone or download, you'll click that and you'll press the copy button. Now for those of you that haven't gotten RStudio to connect with Git, this next section isn't going to work for you, and that's why I say like pair with somebody. But I will also go over a way that if you don't have it talking to RStudio yet, it's okay. We could still go through the day, you can still push to Git, we just have to work through the terminal. So we'll basically be talking directly to your computer. Any questions so far? Yes.
So when you do the clone, it says open in desktop or download zip. What did yours say?
So when you do the clone, you want to press this little button, that copy button on the right. So we're just copying the URL.
Cool.
Yeah, all we're doing is copying the URL. Yeah. Okay, move that out of the way. Okay, so now we're going to create a project. Does anybody not know what a project is for RStudio? Okay. Okay, no worries. So a project is basically just a folder where you keep everything for a certain project together. So the way that I like to think about projects is one publication. I have everything for one publication, or for you guys, one chapter of your thesis in one project, so you keep everything connected together. If we hit new project, we're going to want to hit version control because we're going to do a version controlled project. And then we hit Git. And then you paste the repository URL that you had just copied. Now, under where it says create project subdirectory, for me, I have a subdirectory on my desktop called repositories where I put all my repositories. So make sure you browse and navigate to a place that makes sense for you. I personally think keeping your repositories together is helpful rather than having things in different folders all over the place, but that's totally a personal preference. And once you've done that and you press create project, this will happen. And then you should see a little thing that says Git. You should see the README file that we just created, and you should see the name of the project, which we call Tidy Tuesday.
You want to put your
And then you go
project
to
in your repository. Folder.
version.
On your
That's what I
And
do,
you're gonna
but
Git,
it's up.
and
It's
you're gonna
like total
paste that
personal.
URL that you just copied a second ago. And because you don't
Did you
have
say
your
you get
Git
through
set
new
up yet,
directory or
you're
the?
communicating
Yes, so
here.
click that one
It's
there.
not going to have a
No, no.
Oh, sorry, the version.
Version control.
Oh, okay.
And now click
Yeah.
get.
And put it to wherever you think.
Oh, because have you gotten your RStudio to talk to your get yet?
No.
Okay, so you have to do that first, and that's where she's saying pair up with me, and you can watch what I just did. So I just did exactly what she did.
Yeah. So for those of you that do not have RStudio talking to Git yet, there's a couple different ways that you can do this.
It's too important.
So you can also directly talk to Git through the terminal. And one of the cool things about the newest version of RStudio is that the terminal is actually physically right in RStudio. If you haven't updated your RStudio, it's not going to be there. But if you have, the console is where you code in R, and the terminal is where you're literally talking to your computer. If you don't have that in RStudio, just find the terminal, either the PowerShell, if you have a Windows, Git Bash, or if you have a Mac, just look for the terminal. And all of these are ways that you interact with your computer. And if you were not able to get RStudio to do that, then what you do is you type the words git clone, and then you paste that URL over there and then run it. And then that will clone that to your desktop. And so I actually, for the majority of my stuff, I don't necessarily always interact with RStudio for it, because we have all sorts of other types of files up there that's not necessarily related to R. And so when you work in the terminal, this is the way that you can also interact with GitHub as well. I'm going to delete that so I don't do it twice. Any other questions so far? Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever we create a project, there's a couple of different ways to keep organized. One of the ways that I prefer to keep organized when we're working with like thesis data is I like to have a folder that's specific for code, for data, and for output. So usually my GitHub repositories look something like this, where I have all the data for whatever I'm working on. I have the output, which is all the figures, and I have the scripts. However, for Tidy Tuesday, it doesn't really make sense that way, because we're not working with a lot of data and all this stuff, and we're going to have something different every week. So creating a different folder for every week is probably the best way to keep this repository organized. So we'll start by creating a folder for today, and within that folder will be today's code and today's output, and the next week we'll create another folder, and so on and so forth. So to create a folder, there are lots of different ways that we can do that. The simplest way is literally by pressing this button that says new folder and filling it in. You can also, wherever you saved it, go and if you have like right click and add a new folder wherever it is on your computer. Or if you want to do it with code, you go into the terminal to make a folder or a new directory, use the code mkdir, and then you type the name of whatever the folder you want it to be. And so if I do 8/27/19, you'll see that that folder just popped up over there. So you don't have to do it with code. I'm just showing it to you if you ever want to do that. But you can also just press the new folder. Whoa.
Yikes.
Are you in your terminal?
Yes, in your terminal. So anytime you interact with the computer, it's your terminal. When you're interacting with R, you use the console.
I accidentally
Yes.
deleted the terminal tab.
Yeah.
Close.
So,
close it. You don't have it, then
So I meant this step where you have to do the get executable.
So after this
So that's I'm just following the instructions that like
In which trap? Where are the
So-
instructions you're following?
I'm just following this is like from the website how to get them to communicate.
Oh, okay. I would say use the thing that she sent us.
It's supposed to be
There's a
yeah,
in
when
the
you
email
create
she
a
sent.
project,
There's like a
every project is a folder.
chapterized And I would say
Okay.
chapter 9 is how you connect to the GitHub.
I don't know if I was that in there.
Okay.
Installing the pattern, they connected to and then restarted our and then it was able to connect.
Everyone's got your folder some way or another. Cool.
And it'll pop up on GitHub.
Not yet. We haven't
Oh,
done
okay,
that
I
yet.
see. But
Right
it's
now,
right
so
there,
this is
okay.
the thing. So right now, this is just on your hard drive. So we have to actually tell it to go to GitHub. We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, I see it.
So, of course, the next thing we'll want to do is actually create a script that goes into that folder. So we'll just practice we're going to just write something in a script. If you've never created a script before, this little plus button over here is how you get this on top if your console is all the way up to the top. So I'm just going to write a comment that's like, first day of tidy, oops, I can't spell. I should never live code. First day of tidy Tuesday. And then I'm going to save it, and I'm going to save it into that folder and call it let's call it tidy script
And you just made that folder.
82919.
So, yes, you just made that folder project 1. So you want to go into that folder and save it.
So if I were to click on this folder now, there should be a
Anything
script
that
in
you
there.
don't,
However you named it.
any of your writing should be followed by a hashtag or a star sign or pound sign, because it will see it as a
I'm
command
trying to do
that
that.
essentially tells it that it's
But
not.
unfortunately, it might be after you guys graduate. That's been on my list of things to add. Okay. Anybody not able to save a script into their folder? Everyone's good. Demi, any question? You can write whatever you want. I just wrote, oh, I should probably change so that you can actually, yeah. Sorry, let me also not be like in my coding. Oops. There. That might be easier. No, that's what I use already. Okay. Is it easier with the white background for you guys to see
Yes.
that? Okay. I'm definitely one of those people, like, I like to be in like my dark coding cave, so like everything is black in the background. Cool. Okay, so we've saved our script, we've created our script. Now we want to interact with GitHub so that we can save this folder and push it over to GitHub. And there are a lot of different ways to do this. There's 4 basic functions that we need to know. We need to have to know how to git add, git commit, git push, and git pull. Like, if you know those 4 functions, you can basically do almost anything you want to do. Add means I want to add a new file to a repository. Commit means I'm going to commit the file as like a timestamp in that particular point. And the commits are when you can go back in time. So if you make a bunch of changes and you don't commit it, like it'll only go back in time to the last time you've committed it. Pushing puts it online, and pulling takes things offline that are not on your hard drive. So if I'm interacting with a collaborator and they have pushed something on the repository and I want to pull it onto my hard drive, that's what the pull function is used for. And one of the cool things about R is you can use this by pressing buttons in RStudio, but also you can do this very easily with code. So for those of you that don't have it connected to RStudio yet, you can still do all the things that we're going to do. So the first thing I'm going to show you, let's try to do it in RStudio. So if you click on this little Git tab, this tells you what is getting ready to be staged up in Git. So right now, none of these things are online. So only if things are online already, they're going to disappear from the screen. And what we want to put online in our repository is the contents of our new folder. Oops. So when you click on that, you see how it turns a little A? That means it's been added. It hasn't been committed yet, but it's been added. Okay. Everyone, okay. So now we want to commit it. So you can press this little commit button. And then you want to write a message that actually makes sense, because if you just write, I've committed, I've committed, I've committed, you have no idea what the heck you did during that time. So usually it's like, I fixed plot X and Y, or I updated my temperature data, or whatever. So this is where you're gonna put a message that says, you know, created the first script, or whatever it is that you wanna do. And then when you press commit, if this is your first time doing this, it's probably gonna ask you for your password, your username and password for GitHub. If you have done this already, then it might switch over that. So if it worked, then you should see something where it says there's one file that's been changed. We've had one insertion. That's the one line that I just added. And then it's been committed. So we can close this now. It's still not online, but it's committed. And now you can press this little push button, the green one, and that's what puts it online. That's pushing it to the repository. So now you see it's disappeared over here. It's no longer being staged. It's already up there. And if you were to go and look online now in the GitHub repository that we created, you'll see it there. So you'll see a folder that says 82719, and within that folder, you've got the code that you just created. So now that code is available for all to see if you want. You can make private repositories. So if you are nervous for whatever reason, you don't want to make your data public until it's ready to be published. As a student, you get free private repositories, or with any .edu, if you are no longer a student or no longer a professor or anything like that, then it costs like $7 a month. But for right now, it's free if you want private repositories. Cool. So if you don't have RStudio talking, I'm going to show you the next way that you can do that. Oops, let me just minimize this. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and I'm going to close this. All right, so I'm going to show you I'm going to add a couple of another line of code here. I'm just going to create some random numbers. You can put in whatever you want to do this. I'm just. Okay. So I just added some other random line of code, and I'm going to save it. So I've saved it onto my hard drive. That has done nothing to GitHub. It's just saved on my hard drive, just like you would do with anything. So now we're going to do it with code. So you can use the terminal, or you can use Git Bash, or if you have a terminal separate from RStudio as well. This file has already been added. We only ever need to add it once, but every time we need to commit it and push it. So the code for committing in Git is git commit. And then you need some qualifiers after it. You have to use -A and -M. And what that does is it tells you to commit everything that I've done since my last commit. So the code is git space commit space -A space -M, and then a quote and whatever you want your quote to be. So second line of code, which is useless. Don't do that for real. But so my commit message is second line of code. Bless you. And if I run that, you'll see the exact same thing basically that said when I was using it by pressing buttons. Here it says one file has been changed, there's been 2 insertions, and 1 thing has been deleted. And now if I want to push it, the code for pushing is git push. Same thing, it might ask you for your username and password if you haven't really used this. And if not, it's going to go through and it's going to push the object over there. And now if I go onto GitHub, I should look at my R script, see something was pushed 3 minutes ago, and I can see my new line of code. Generated right over there.
How do you push button?
Git space push. Okay. So, like I said, one of the most important things about this is the version controlling is to be able to go back in time. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. You can see what you've done in time. If you click this little history on one of the things that you've opened, you can see there's been 2 commits. And you see the commit messages, created my first script, second line of code. Obviously, this is useless commit information, but if you had something where you're like, I created plot of temperature, then you would know the code in which you did that, which you added that. And these numbers over here, these are the commit numbers, where we're not going to go over this today, but there are fancy ways where you can go back multiple spaces in time by using those commit numbers. So I can click on it, and I can see literally exactly what I did. Green means something's been added. So you see in that commit, I added the quote, first day of Title Tuesday. Right. If I hit the next one, you can see that I deleted that line and then re-added it. And I added a new line that creates random normal data. So you can go back in time and look exactly line by line what you've added and deleted over time. Okay.
Vanessa, every time that you want to save something,
Mhm.
you have to go through the steps of pushing, like committing it, and pushing it.
Yeah. So my kind of rule of thumb is commit often, push less. Like it doesn't matter. You need to push it for it to be online, but the commits are really what matters with if you want to go back in time. Like if you spend an entire day coding and you've written an entire page of code, you can only go back in time to the time you committed before, right? So I will, like, I don't know, maybe every hour or something like that, I'll commit a lot. So I can say, oh crap, I messed something up. I need to go back and revert back to whatever it was.
And so then the M for modified is not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. The M for modified means you've changed something, but you haven't committed it yet, and you haven't pushed it yet. So let's say now my crazy cat has walked across my computer, deleted stuff, and then did this, and then magically saved it, and I'm like, oh my God, don't remember what I did. I have no idea. I don't know what I did. Okay, so I want to go back in time and revert back to it. So the way that we do that is by hitting this little button up top that's like the settings looking button and hit revert. Oops. Let's try that again. Revert. Okay, and it says, are you sure you want to go back? And I say yes. And there we go. Oh my God, my code's been saved. So that will only send you back to whatever that last commit was. So if you've created a bunch of craziness and you've saved it by accident, when you press the revert button, it'll take you back to that last commit. So that's a nice thing with RStudio, that it'll do it by one. If you need to go back in time more than one, then you need to do that with the terminal, and we can go over that at another time. But this is the basics of how you do that here. Yes.
If you haven't come in and pushed it through like the buttons on your like RStudio, if you've been working in terminal, you have to do the revert code in there.
You would, if you're not working in RStudio, then yes, you would have to do it back in there. And like if you just Google, go back to a commit, you basically have to tell it which commit message to go to. So you go into GitHub, you copy that number, and then you tell it which one to go back to, and it'll
So
revert
it won't
back.
give the option to revert on your RStudio.
If you don't have this interface, then no. But if you do have this interface, then yes.
Right. It's not like it's not.
Do you have that? Do you have the same interface as me? So
Yeah.
click this button right there. Yep. And then go down there. Hit the
Oh, okay. You have to select it.
Yep, you have to select it. Okay. Cool. So the last thing we'll go over is how to pull something. So for example, let's go into our repository online. And let's say we want to change something in our README file, but we're doing it online. You can change things by editing, by pressing this little button over here. That's the edit button, and then it takes you to an edit file. This is written in a language called Markdown. It's not that difficult to learn. We're not going to worry about that right now, but if you Google how to write in Markdown, it'll tell you. The most important thing right here is just that a hashtag means a heading. And so let's say I want to say, just like add another line here, Title Tuesday workshop at Seaside. Very informative. Then you can scroll down and commit by pressing commit changes at the bottom. So what's happened now is my repository has been changed online, but it's not changed on my hard drive yet. And I need to make sure that I pull to change it on my hard drive. So again, there's two ways we can do this. You can press this little button over here, the down button, that will pull, or you can go in the terminal and type the words git space pull. And you'll see it said there was one change in the .readme file. So now if I click back to look at the .readme file and open it, you'll see that it now says @CSUN at the bottom. So now it's been pulled back onto my computer. This is really important that if you're working with other people, you want to pull at the beginning of the day before you do anything. Because let's say both of you are working on the exact same file and they've made changes, you need to pull it before you make changes and push it. Otherwise, you're going to have merge conflicts. Because then you've got two different files that have two different sets of code. So anytime I open my computer in the morning, I git pull everything because I have no idea what my collaborators did the night before. And then for me too, I'm working on like my laptop and my work computer and, you know, God knows where else. I want to make sure that I've pulled everything so all my computers are in sync with each other. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, so that is basically all I was going to tell you. Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
No worries. Sorry.
The whole thing.
Okay,
I have
so
no idea what happened.
did you, where are we?
The revert, like making a file that you now need to pull.
Okay, so let's go back to, okay. So if you go and click on the README file online on GitHub, and then this little button over here that looks like a pencil, click on that and then just write something, anything. And then scroll down to the bottom and press commit change. Is that done? Cool. Okay. So now in RStudio, you have two options. You can either press the down button under Git, or you can type in the terminal git space pull. Yes.
And then the revert thing.
Oh, the revert thing is if you've messed up something on your computer and you accidentally saved it. So I have to do it again. Well, let me do it again. Okay. My cat walked across my screen. So over here under Git, you see that now something's been modified. I'm going to click on that script. And then under the settings looking thing, I'm going to go press revert. And then when it says, are you sure you want to continue? You press yes. And then it goes back and reverts back to the last commit. Awesome. So that's all I was going to talk about for how to interact with Git. Now I want to introduce you to Tidy Tuesday and what that is and how you get the data. So the way that you get the data is from GitHub. So the people that create this, the R for Data Science, they post all the data for Tidy Tuesday on GitHub. And so in the little search button, if you type Tidy Tuesday, I already have them followed, but you basically click on all GitHub after you've done that. The top one where it says R4 Data Science / Tidy Tuesday, that's where all of the data are posted. And their README file has all the data that they've done for every week. Has everyone gotten that? Tidy Tuesday? Okay, so scroll down all the way to the bottom. Yeah. Oh, R for Data Science, yeah. You'll notice there's all these useful links that have, these are free online books and things like that that are awesome. I emailed all of you two of my favorites, the R for Data Science book that they created, which goes over how to tidy your data. It'll be really helpful in these sessions to basically like have that PDF open because it goes through the steps of how you clean your data, how you take sums and means and all sorts of things, and how do you do basic plotting. And then I also sent you a free book for how to visualize data. And that's not necessarily a coding book, although they've made it all in R, but it shows you like, oh, I have continuous data by continuous data, like what are the best ways to visualize that? And it goes through all these different ways to do that. And if you click on the figure, it'll also show you all the code in R. So today, you click on the data for today, which is Simpsons guest stars, and it tells you this is the data dictionary. It tells you the data that we're going to work with. So basically, they're giving us data on season, an episode number, the production of the episode, the title, the guest star's actual name, and their role. And this is what we have to do whatever we want with, to clean, to make plots, do all sorts of fun stuff. And they also tell you how to get the data. They write the code for you. So literally all you have to do is copy this and paste it into your script. For those who have never used a package before, in order for any of this to work, you'll basically want to use the tidyverse package. So if you've already installed it on your computer, don't do this step. If you haven't, type the words install and then hit the tab button, and you'll see that this install.packages shows up. And then you hit quote and write tidyverse. I'm not going to run this because I already have. This is basically just like installing a program on your computer. And when you run that, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff appear down here, and you need that to get it to download for your computer to work. Once that's been installed, to load the package, or essentially load the program, you use the words library, and then you keep that package name over there. And so before you bring in any data or do anything, this should basically be one of your first lines of code in your script. So for those of you that already have it, basically you run it and it'll tell you all the different things that it's attaching. Another rule of thumb that I have is always to keep your script really clean and to comment as much as you possibly can. So I often will start my scripts with a comment of what it is that I'm doing. I'll put my name. I'll put the date. And then I have headlines for all the things that I want to do next. So I do load the library. And then I have a blog post that I've written about this that I'll send with you guys so you can actually go and see what's going on. And then I'll do read data. And this makes it so much easier for when you're going to share your code with the rest of the world. They can see exactly what you're doing. So I almost comment every single line of what it is that I'm doing. So you can go ahead and click back over to the environment now to get yourself back in RStudio. So if you're able to install the package and then loaded the library, oops. If you run this line of code for Simpsons, you'll see all the data appear over here. There's 1,386 observations and the 6 different variables that we had talked about that were on that website. And then that's it, basically. Then you play around with that data any way that you want. Look at the data dictionary, be like, oh, what could be something cool to visualize based off of this data? And then you make a plot. And then when you're done with that, you push that onto the GitHub repository you just created, and you go on Twitter and copy the link to that and write hashtag Tidy Tuesday, and then it shares with everybody else that's doing Tidy Tuesday stuff today. Anyone have any questions? Yes, probably. Anyone have any questions right now? Yes.
So this is about R.
Okay.
In terms of like, I mean, I've been using it for a while and I just always like review these things. So like installing packages, loading packages, should you only have to install a package once but load it each time?
Yes, that's a great question. So you only install a package once unless you've updated your computer in any way. So if you've updated R, then everything that you've installed in the past, you have to reinstall. So one of the steps of going through the pre-workshop stuff was updating R. And if you've done that, then you'll have to reinstall it. But you have to load the library by using library in the name of the package every single time you open your script. And so a lot of times you'll see script with like 10 lines of libraries loaded. Tidyverse is great because it has a lot of the things, almost all the things that you need to do in this interaction. But there's also lots of other cool libraries for plotting that you can Google and basically figure out how to load those in. But yeah, you load the library every single time, you only install once. Yes.
Are the rules for these data sets that you can't add any additional data to the?
I mean, there's no rules. It's
Okay.
fun, but like, so if you want to add additional data, you can. But then you have to, if you want to share it with the
Right.
community, you got to make sure that it's on your
Push
GitHub
it.
repository. Yeah, because the idea is that they should be able to download it and do like basically copy and paste the code and just run it, and then get the exact same plot as you. Like that's the idea. Cool. All right. Yes. Question.
So can I do the terminal tab?
Okay. I will come help you in a second. So everybody else, just like
So. what
make
you
some
do
Simpsons plots.
Is if you go to, so you loaded the package, the environment. So you didn't run that one. So you click here, use command, enter.
You got it?
It loads that data set. Yeah, there's the data set right there. Pull it up. Yeah. So Nissa was also saying it's in here.
So
Try to, you can see kind of how I did this in here. Try to leave a couple lines between things and label everything that you're doing. It makes it a lot easier to follow the work that you did before and certainly for other people to follow the work. No worries. Yeah. When you get a really crazy script, it helps a lot. Hmm.
Do you have like a slide version of R, or do you have everything? Terminal tab.
So
I mean, I just really like, are there,
Wait, can you sort by guest?
that's the one where.
Yeah, you can do.
Like the bar, yeah, I think the newest is 0.133.
No, it was like under the.
No, that's what you have to get art.
Oh, like.
Do you have to get-
Yeah.
You should always double check using this stuff, but if you're sure it's not introduce yourself yet. So, in R, I guess try to.